Welcome, everybody, to the Next Experience Academy. Today being hosted on Vancouver Release Day. Welcome, everybody. We are going to be talking today about UI Builder and workspaces in Vancouver, what's new, and what you can get your hands on starting today. Next slide. My name is Maria Gabriela Ochoa Perez Wechter. A lot of you may know me as MGOPW. I'm a senior app-on product manager on the platform web UX team. And with me today is...
My name is Brad Tilton, and I am also a product manager on the web UX team.
Awesome. So today's Academy, before we get started, let's go over some quick housekeeping. We highly recommend that you use the Q&A feature for questions because it helps us gather the questions afterwards to post in our events for each of these academies. If you ever want to see a historical listing of the academies, you can find it on the community, and you'll be able to see a single event for every academy, and you'll have the YouTube video for that academy in the event listed. Use the chat for comments, Q&A for questions, and the session is being recorded, and the slides and video will be made available at a later time. These sessions are for you, so please ask questions and interact. We're not just going to be doing a presentation. We'll be in the product configuring live. Brad will be giving us an awesome demo of what's new in Vancouver, and we will be back soon. Our next session is going to be October 18th at 11 a.m. Eastern. Another thing that we also do is called UI Builder Live. It's on the second and fourth Thursday of every month at 4 p.m. Eastern. That's on the ServiceNow Developer Advocates YouTube channel. And it's a much more in-depth technical take and sort of introduction into UI Builder and workspaces. So if you're interested in that kind of content like we're going over today, I highly recommend you also take a look at those. So we are product managers, which means that we might often state forward-looking statements. Today, since we're talking about Vancouver, we may not have very many, but it's important to note that you should not make any purchasing decisions on any forward-looking statements that we might make. We'll often refer back to Safe Harbor, and that's what this is for. Now it's off to Brad.
All right. Thank you, Gabby. All right. So we're going to start with the Next Experience Roadmap. That's what we're talking about today. We're going to get into UI Builder, workspaces, custom components, and the CLI. Sorry, somebody just knocked on my door. Yeah, so we're going to get into all of those things, what's new in Vancouver. We'll go through some slides here, and then we'll get into an instance and kind of take a look around. But we're going to start with, why are we on this journey to replatform the user experience? What does it look like? So our goal is to become the world's most modern and intuitive platform to revolutionize work. A lot of words there. But we're basically trying to replatform the whole user experience onto this new tech stack. We'll kind of share some of the stuff that we're doing in Vancouver to make that happen today. That is the wrong way. So you can see here, we started this way back in New York when we came out with Agent Workspace. And then over time, we have rolled out configurable workspaces. We're really focused on both fulfiller productivity right now, as well as making the builder and developer experience better and easier to pick up. So a lot of usability improvements in Vancouver and UI Builder, and then a lot of functionality improvements in workspaces. And we'll kind of get through that here in a bit. A couple of quick things. We'll talk about components in the presentation. If you want to go look at the list of all of the components, there's some new ones in the Vancouver release. All the components are on the developer site. Again, components are really the building blocks of the experiences. I keep hitting the wrong button and we keep going backwards. I should move my keyboard. I just moved it an inch to the left, which should help. This is riveting. Yeah. So we also have a number of workspaces that we're shipping. As of Vancouver, I think we're at 51 workspaces that we're shipping out of the box here. We don't have a consolidated list of those anywhere, but if you are looking for a workspace, it's generally a good idea to go to the product documentation for whatever product you're looking at and seeing if they have a workspace in there. At this point, most of our products do have some sort of workspace. All right, with that, let's get into some of the actual Vancouver features. This is why everyone's here. And so let's get into it. So we're going to start with agent productivity features. So this is really, what's happening in the workspace and what are your agents and fulfillers really going to see. So we'll start with the first one. I think we went over this last month as well. But it's a big one. Guided tours are now available for workspaces. So this was a big blocker for adopting workspaces. It's also kind of nice when you roll out a new UI, you probably want to show people how to use it. So guided tours for workspaces is pretty helpful here. So you can continue to run your existing guided tours and you can also create new guided tours with Workspace. The next one is in Workspace, and we'll show this in the demo. We've got a new email tab in the activity stream component. So we've always had comments and work notes, and now there's an email tab that's new in Vancouver that lets you compose email directly from the activity stream. So before you'd have to open up the email client in a new tab or do it in the contextual sidebar, depending on how you were doing things. Now you can do it directly in the activity stream, and the email goes into the activity stream. We also did some little kind of ease of use improvements to the email client, where you can drag and drop addresses around and add attachments when forwarding emails, which was not possible before. You will continue to see more email improvements. We're I think at one point everyone wanted to get away from email, but it's here to stay. So we are going to be making even more improvements in the email composer in workspaces in the future. We had a question I just saw come in. Is it connected with email client templates? I believe you can apply templates through the email composer there. I think that's true. All right, more workspace enhancements. One of the things that we added is the ability to resize modals. So we know that sometimes a modal would pop up, and if it was real small on the page and had a lot of text, you had to do a lot of scrolling. So now you can resize both horizontally and vertically. You can create custom activity stream filters, and we'll kind of look at that a little bit as well. So in the activity stream, if you've got a ticket that's been open for a really long time and lots of people have commented on it, and you want to go find a comment or find an email that was sent or when a field changed, you can create those filters and then save them. And I believe you can even share filters now. Is that right? You can at least save them. And then user preferences are consistent across the workspace. So, if I've done something as a user of a workspace and then I leave and come back, if I've resized something or made a change, those things should be persistent. Previous to Vancouver, some of that was not consistent. And then some generative AI. One of the things that from a workspace perspective we are shipping is generative AI, so Now Assist summarization. So I think Now Assist for ITSM, HR, and CSM all have a summarization feature, whether that's an incident or a case. You can hit a button and it will summarize that case for you. So this is another really helpful thing. If you have a case or an incident that's been open for a long time and has a lot going on with it, you can summarize it. I have messed around with this. It actually works pretty well. And it does a pretty good job. And so the other generative AI thing is, I believe, for the Now Assist for ITSM, you can automatically generate resolution notes using our generative AI controller. There will be lots more information about all of the generative AI features coming out in the future. I think a lot of them come out next week or are more generally available. But if you kind of pay attention, we will have lots of things like that coming out pretty often. All right, so a couple of questions here. Do you know why right-click spell check is no longer accessible? I do not know what the deal is there. We can look at it at some point. Response templates, depending on the workspace. So our response templates available in workspaces. I think they can be. I think some of our workspaces ship with response templates, and some don't. So I think they can be. And then we had another one. Is there a plan to make more UI Builder components available in NPM? It's something we've talked about. I don't think we have any hard plans to add some of the more complex components in NPM. So the components that are in NPM are really kind of our atomic level components. They're these base level components that you would use to build out, bigger components. So some of our bigger components, like the form component or, calendar, or some of those would not be available in NPM. All right, so let's take a look at, so we just kind of looked at agent productivity. We're going to take a look at UI Builder and custom components and Chrome extension here in the next set of slides.
And thank you so much to our lovely audience. I just confirmed that in order to access spell check now, you have to control right click onto the word, and then it'll pop up. It seems like it's something with the newest release of the text editor. Thank you, Sharad, Dominic, and Michael.
Another question around UI Builder. We are working on another Now Learning course called UI Builder Advanced. It's in process. I'm hoping it'll be out this year, but we'll see when it actually comes out. But that is something that we're working on as an advanced UIB course. In terms of micro certifications, I don't think we have any plans for that at this point, but you never know. All right, so this is the more fun stuff for me anyway, is the UI Builder stuff. So one of the big ones, probably the biggest UI Builder related Vancouver release feature is our new column layout functionality. So I can, instead of having to add lots of containers and nest them and, make sure that they're a certain amount of space wide, there is a new column layout feature where I can drag a set of columns onto the page or add a set of columns onto the page. And then I can add new columns. I can change percentages. I can nest columns within columns. So it lets you set up a fairly complex layout really quickly for a new page. So one thing to note is that existing pages don't get converted automatically. And if you have an existing page that's already laid out, you don't really need the column layouts. It's really more useful for brand new pages where you have some sort of UI that you want to mimic, or some layout that you want to mimic. So think about something like a big dashboard with lots of things on it. You might need lots of columns, and so we'll take a look at this when we get into the demo. We also added a new type of overlay called a popover. So we had modals before. We're adding popover. They work pretty similarly to modals, where you create a popover and then you would trigger it from somewhere. The big difference between a modal and a popover is a modal you're trying to take somebody's attention and focus it on a modal, so the rest of the screen goes gray. They can't do anything else until they address whatever's in the modal, whether it's informational or something they're filling out. And a popover is really more informational. You don't necessarily need to take all of their attention. It's just a way for them to maybe get more, to have more information, or maybe take a quick action somewhere. So we'll kind of take a look at how that works. It's fairly straightforward. The next two are probably my favorite couple of features in Vancouver. So in UI Builder, there is a new preview option. So the preview option allows you to preview your current variant without having to save it. And also without having to meet the conditions or the audience in order to see it. So pre-Vancouver, if I had 10 variants of a page and I wanted to test one of them, I'd have to make sure that when I hit that URL, that's the variant that I would get in order to test it. So generally you're having to kind of reorder them and remove conditions just to test the page. So now I can just preview the page. I see the preview in a big modal that comes up. And I also can do that without saving the page, which is pretty helpful. The other big one, my other favorite feature is undo redo. So this was a great one. You can undo and redo across page saves. So you can go back. It's about 20 steps right now across a save. We are, working on improving that. If you close your browser, you lose context if you exit out of the page. So as long as you're on the same page, it works across saves. So that's pretty helpful. I don't know how many times I've done something where, I save a little too quickly and maybe I've made a mistake and I can't remember what I just did. So undo redo is pretty helpful there. It also, it works with standard keyboard shortcuts. So Command Z. Yeah. I totally blanked.
Or Control Z.
Or Control Z, that's right. We also improved the styling a little bit. This is one of those kind of little quality of life improvements. So for the styling here, we're just doing more things visually, like padding and margins. If you're not a CSS wizard or you don't use it a lot, sometimes it's hard to remember which one the margin does and which one the padding does. So you can see on the slide here, it's just a little bit more visual way to do it. You can click on any of those zeros or margin or padding to set those. So it's a little easier just to set like a right margin or something like that. You've also got, in terms of like thicknesses of things, we're kind of showing what that actually is instead of just making you pick large and maybe it's big enough, maybe it's not, and you have to pick extra large. So now you can kind of see that a little better. And so we're kind of doing this gradually with lots of styling. This won't be the last styling improvement you see in a release. The other thing we're doing is progressive disclosure, so that you're not overwhelmed by all possible styles when you first open it. When you click into that styles tab, you're only going to get kind of the ones you use the most. And then you can click show advanced configurations and get the rest of your styling. So really trying to make it a little more usable and approachable for a new user. All right, we'll get through one more and then I'll answer a couple of questions. The other one is the What's New button in UI Builder in Vancouver. So there's a little button at the top. You click on it and it just tells you basically the 4 things that we just went through. So it's a little bit easier way to know, here's the new stuff in UIB, and we'll keep expanding that in future releases. So a couple of questions. Do we have a process or implementation guide for changing the standard content on the SOW homepage? Service Operations Workspace actually has a pretty good amount of documentation on how to change things that work a little differently than other workspaces. And that includes, I think, all of the different parts of their standard landing page. And so it does tell you how to go in and kind of change up like data visualizations, right? The Service Operations Workspace uses a repeater with a data visualization, and you're actually feeding it some JSON. And so they kind of tell you how to update that in the docs. So if you go to the Service Operations docs, that will be there. The next one, does preview work with articles? I'm not quite sure what that is referring to, but preview is specific to UI Builder pages. So if you have a UI Builder page, you can use preview with it. And then is the what's new being added to other platform functions as well? I hope so. My team is pretty specific on our next experience products, so I don't quite know what's new with some of the other products, but I would hope that we are doing that for more products.
I know it's at least in Theme Builder as well.
There we go. All right, so let's get into the CLI and components. So we have some new components, so we'll start there. So this is really just us kind of closing the functionality gap. There's still a couple of components that we probably need, like a reference component and some things like that. But the date and date range were pretty heavily asked for components. So if I have a form, I can work with dates, but there are times where you want to allow somebody to pick a date or a date range that's not in the context of a table form. And so in that case, we do now have the individual components available. And so that is the date component and the date range picker, which is pretty nice. So that's actually an area where Workspace has kind of leaped the classic environment. Leaped. I don't know. I think it's leapt. The classic environment, and so that you can actually choose a range of dates, like you can see in the screenshot here. All right, and then we've also made some CLI improvements. So we released the CLI, I think, in Orlando, and haven't really touched it too much since then. So this is really the biggest improvement to the CLI since Orlando. If you're not familiar with the CLI that we're talking about here, this is the command line interface that will let you create custom components. So if you want to create a custom component, deploy it to an instance, and then use it in UI Builder, you can do that through a local environment with the CLI. So we've added some new functionality to it, where when you deploy a component to an instance, it does an upsert. So previously, if there was an existing component and you just wanted to update it, when you deploy it, it would actually delete the old version. You'd have to do a force. It would delete the old version and create a new version, which had some kind of weird problematic stuff with it. And so now it does an upsert, so you don't have to worry about it getting deleted. Events now get correctly deployed when you deploy it to an instance. And then the other part is you can generate an update set instead of deploying a component directly to an instance. So you can generate an update set and then load that update set into your instance, and it'll load the component in there. There's a couple of ways that's really helpful. It's going to help people collaborate a little better on components because you can deploy a component to your instance using an update set, and it doesn't need to match the scope name of your instance. So a couple of nice things with the update sets. We now support up to node 16. This is not if you've not used the CLI, this is probably why do I care about this? But previously, I think it was node 12, which is a fairly old version of Node, and there's lots of reasons you might have a newer version. So you had to get NVM and make sure that you had the right version, and it was kind of a pain. So we're supporting up to node 16, and that will get more current in future releases as well. So we're not done at node 16. We're going to try to get as current as we can. And then the last one, we're removing the release requirement. It wasn't really necessary. So, we would sometimes have this odd time between when EA comes out and the CLI hadn't been updated yet. You couldn't use the CLI against Vancouver during the early access period or early availability. And so we've kind of removed that because there's not a huge reason that we would need that release requirement. If you download the new CLI version, are there also dependent libraries? I don't believe you have to update anything else. If you update the CLI, it should be ready to use, I believe. So the next question is, there's a barrier in the organization that SOW has too much white space, and they want to better utilize the white space. That is actually a part of Vancouver. I don't have it on the slides here because it was a small update, and I didn't think people would care that much, but I should have left it in. But yeah, we did do some work around compacting the interface and making better use so there's less white space. So we had a few pieces of customer feedback around that, and so that is an improvement in Vancouver. All right, and the last thing here is this is not necessarily tied to Vancouver, but it is pretty recent. So there is a new Chrome extension that we released. I think it's still called Dex Developer Tools, but we're changing the name of it because, of course, we're going to change the name of something. It is in beta, but it is really helpful, and so we'll show a little short demo of it here in a minute. But it's got two main functions. It has a Next UI inspector so that you can kind of take a look at the components and look at their properties and events and things like that. You can kind of catch events that are happening on the page. You can track transactions. And then it has a second tab called the Next UI Profiler. That allows you to do some performance troubleshooting. So if you have seen, if you've seen a normal ServiceNow page in the classic environment, you've got the little response time indicator down at the bottom right. It's really helpful. A lot of people use that to baseline their performance, and now you can also do that in next experience pages, but it has a ton more functionality than the response time indicator. You can establish a baseline. You can download that baseline, so in the future you can compare it against other page loads. So if somebody's complaining that something's happening really slowly, you can go in and kind of do some comparison there. So we'll show a little demo of that in the demo section coming up here. And a couple of questions about the extension. Right now, it is Chrome only. We are exploring other options. We're also exploring ways to build some of that functionality into the platform so you don't need an extension. But for right now, it is Chrome only. So that, it's better than no extension, but we know we have some work to do in order to improve troubleshooting for everyone. All right, I'm going to hop into the demo here.
Thank you all so much for typing your questions in the Q&A. It has been great. I've been answering people in the chat, and I've been chatting to hosts and panelists this whole time. So nobody's been seeing any of my messages. It's been a lot of fun.
That's great. Love it. All right. So this should be big enough for everyone. Somebody has their hand raised. I don't think we're enabling audio on this. So if you have a question, please ask it in the Q&A. All right, so where's my little list of things that I'm going to go through? There we go. All right, so we're going to start with the some of the improvements to the record page. So I'm going to kill that. And it's loading, of course. At least it didn't log me out. All right, so was this what I wanted? No, I'm in the wrong workspace. What a way to start my demo. There we go.
Another awesome feature that we didn't hit on because it's next experience related is the instance tools bar that Brad has up right now, where it shows the update set and the scope and the old system property message from core UI/UI 16 is back as well. But Brad, do you want to hide it so we get some real estate back?
Sure, I can do that. The other thing that I really like is this little recent selection thing.
Oh, yes, that's awesome.
All right, let's get some space back. And we're going to go ahead and open.
If you want more information on how to turn that on, you should check out last month's Academy. It's up on the community.
Nice. All right, so here we go. Here, I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. This may be harder to see. There we go. I wanted all my tabs here. All right, so the first thing that I showed was that we've added an email client in the activity stream. That lets you compose an email directly from the activity stream, which is nice because I have access to everything that's happening in the ticket. I can drag and drop email addresses. I can forward attachments, which is nice. So all of these in the activity stream here. We also are making improvements to the email composer here. So I don't know that these are actually improvements in Vancouver, but our long-term goal, and I mentioned this, is to make this email client like a real email client that works similar to whatever your favorite email client is. Now assist summarization available for PDIs? It is not available for PDIs currently. I have heard that people want to make it available, but it is not currently available for PDIs. Can you add quick messages? I think you can access quick messages, but we'll hunt down a real answer to that. All right, so that is the email client. We also have added a few other things like filter sets. So how do there we go. So filter sets, I can create a new filter set. I think I can share that. So, right, so I can create a new filter set where I do some filtering of the activity stream. I think we all have seen that with the activity stream, it can get pretty crazy if a ticket's been open long enough. I think that's especially true if you're looking at like a request and you're writing all of your SC task and request item information to the request. Those can get pretty crazy. So that's helpful, filtering the activity stream and saving those filter sets. And then one other thing is that for attachments, we've added the ability to create declarative actions for attachments. So if I wanted to add another action here, I could do that now with the attachment. So this was something that a lot of customers had been asking for, is to be able to add some actions to attachments here. All right, so that's basically it for the form itself. So one of the things I want to do now is let's take a look at the Chrome extension. So if you have installed the Chrome extension, when you bring up the console here, You can see that there's a couple of new options, and that may be small for you. There we go. So a couple of new options here around Next UI Inspector and Next UI Profiler. So Next UI Inspector allows you to take a look at the structure of the page and see things that are getting passed into components. So I can click on this little guy and come in and look at that. And so I can see that that header is, where are we? Yeah, so that's part of the form component. And so when I click on it, I can see some details for the component. So I can see what properties it has and what the values of those properties are, which can get really helpful, especially for some of our more complex components, like the form component. You can see some of the complexity here. I can see what the component's internal state is. I can take a look at all of the action handlers associated with the component, and then also look if any actions have been taken so far with the component. I can also look at events on the page. So I could say there, and then I just moused over this. We can see that the tooltip action fired. If I click on more actions, I got the drop down here. And so a lot of options for kind of inspecting pages, troubleshooting things. We've got transactions here. So if I'm doing something, I can kind of track some of that. And then all of these things also have filtering enabled. One thing that I can also do is I can kind of redispatch an action. So if we did, would be a good one here. I can't find a good one. But anyway, I could refire an action if I wanted to kind of see what happens based on that action. I can just create a new one. And then we have some logs here. So some logs that may not show up in the console could show up in the logs tab here. The other thing is the Next UI Profiler. So one of the things I can do here is reload and record what is happening. So the page is loading and it's all rendered. So we'll stop it. And I get this cool flame chart. Was that the name of this chart? But yeah, I get this cool, we're going to call it a flame chart because I'm like 70% sure that's what this is called. You can flame graph. Okay. Yeah, you can click into these and kind of see what's associated with it. You can see the number of different types of events that were fired and that sort of thing. You can download this and then compare it, use it as a baseline and compare it to something else. There is a little comparison tool here where I could run this again. I could import from another instance. So if you have one instance that's slow, like maybe your test instance is running super slow, but your dev instance is not, you can compare those load times here and you'll get lots of details. If you want to learn more about the Chrome DevTools extension, we went into depth for about an hour last Thursday with the product manager and some of the engineers. And so that is on our UNI Builder Live playlist on the developer YouTube channel. And I'm sure Gabby can post a link for us at some point. Oh, she did it. Nice.
I was already on it.
So yeah, that is the Chrome extension. So lastly, we're going to hop into UIB, but I'm going to answer some questions first. So I think we answered quick messages. Is it possible to reply to an email update in activities via email? I'm not totally sure I understand that question. So you should be able to reply to email from the activity stream component there. Will the drop zone for attachments be increased to be the same as Agent Workspace? It's restricted to the sidebar where it was the entire page before. That's a great question. I don't know. I think probably not, because the attachments are actually in a little window here in configurable workspaces. And so I think you probably have to drag it into that page, but it may be. I don't know what the specific roadmap is for that. We had a VTB question. There is, I almost don't even want to say it, but there is a Kanban component that you can add to a workspace. So you could kind of approximate the VTB functionality. Right now, that would be a pretty heavy lift from a configuration and development perspective, because you're basically going to have to wire all of the data up to that Kanban component yourself, and all of the actions kind of wire everything together. So right now it is technically possible, but it's not super easy at the moment. When is the next UNI builder? I believe it's a week from tomorrow. Is that right? Yeah, that's right.
Correct. The second and fourth Thursday of every month at 4 p.m. Eastern.
And then we had a question, is the Chrome extension only for Vancouver? No, actually. I believe it's Utah plus. I don't know that it'll work on a pre-Utah instance, but you could try it. You know, the worst that can happen is it doesn't work. All right. Oh, and apparently it can be installed on Opera running on Linux. Not a thing that I have tried. All right, so now let's look at some of these things in UIB. And then we will be done. Keep the questions coming. If you've got more questions, we will have time for more questions. But I am going to open a workspace here. So we've got my fleet vehicle management workspace. I've got that what's new tab or button, and it's going to show me, hey, there's undo redo. You can use column layouts. There is the new preview button, and popovers are a thing now. So that is nice. So one of the things that I think I want to do here.
And since we've gotten so many questions about it, what we're doing in the next episode of UNI Builder Live is we're actually going to go over our Hacktoberfest repos, and we're going to show you how to contribute. So if you're interested in getting into CLI or working with a workspace and having like specific things that you got to do and contribute to and have fun with an awesome open source thing, we will have example custom components up on it, and we'll be showing you how to contribute to the project. It's a great time to join if it's your very first time trying out any of this stuff.
Thank you. You do not have to sign up to join UNI Builder. It is a live stream on YouTube. So all you have to do is be able to access YouTube. All right, so we're going to look at popovers real quick. So popovers show up in that same section as modal. As modals, what I have to do is basically create a popover and then trigger it. So we're going to create a very simple popover here, where I'm going to add some content to it. Let's go. Is this my instance where the search doesn't work? It is. That is not, that's not a Vancouver feature. I just need to zboot this instance. It's too old. All right, so we've got more presets. I'm going to remove the preset, and we're just going to say I'm a popover. It's an excited popover. I'm not going to save. We are going to go, and now we will trigger that popover. So why aren't you going away? I have to click on something else. I'm going to put a button after this button. So let's duplicate that into another button. We don't want to use a preset. And we're going to call this popover. And we're going to get rid of that event handler and add a popover event handler. So we've got an open popover event handler.
And the reason that popover event handler was there was because we duplicated the button?
Yes, I duplicated the button, and it was the other one was popping a modal. So custom popover, I'm going to hit add, and then I haven't saved anything, and we're going to run a quick preview. So this is the preview functionality. I can, use the widths here. I could say fill the whole page, and then I can actually open that page if maybe for some reason I don't think it's being rendered correctly, or maybe I want to test how the URL parameters actually look. I can actually open that page. So I'm going to click popover, and now we can see we have this I'm a popover.
Now, what's the difference between previewing it using this pane and opening the URL path?
Yeah, the big difference is that when you preview, you're getting the most current version, or you're getting whatever is in UI Builder. So we haven't saved anything yet, so that popover doesn't exist. And then the other thing that we get is I get to preview the variant that I'm looking at, even if I wouldn't normally get that variant if I go to the URL. So those are, sorry?
Because of audiences and stuff like that?
Yeah, because of audiences. So if I didn't have the role, or maybe my page is like the 6th page that somebody would see. So just one of those kind of nice quality of life improvements. We can see I've also got undo redo here. So I can, if I save, I still have access to undo back before the save until I change pages or close out of UIB here.
My favorite usability, like quality of life upgrade, is if you hover over the elements on the page, it's a lot more granular what you're selecting versus containers are purple now and the actual components are blue. It makes it a lot easier to view for me.
Yep, that's a great point. And we've also added kind of the add after, add before to the stage here. So we made some stage improvements. We're not done. We are working on performance improvements to the stage in future releases. But for now, these are the improvements. I mentioned we kind of redid the styles pane a little bit, just a lot more graphics to make it easier to know what you're doing. I can click into padding and see that this is using a theming hook, but I can get in the margin. We could make the margin a lot bigger. So a lot more graphic focused. I think the border was another one where we added some graphics here, but just making it a little easier for people to use, especially if you're not a CSS expert. So one last thing that I want to show is, let's go create a new page. So I'm going to create a new page here. Scratch. And let's take a look at the new column-based layouts. So one of the things in Vancouver, it doesn't well, I guess previous releases also do this, but it does not put you directly into the page. That is a thing that I think we are going to fix at some point. But I do have to click back into the page after I created it. All right, so you can see as we mentioned, we've got this pink, purple, it looks pink to me, border on anything that is a container. And so when I hit add component, One of the things you'll notice is when I did this before inside of a popover, it took me straight to components. So we're trying to be a little bit more textually or contextually aware of where you're at and suggest some things based on that. So the layouts here, instead of having to add containers and try to nest them and make them work right, which I was always pretty bad at. There are some pre-configured layouts, column layouts you can choose. So if we do side panels, I have this here, and then you can also reconfigure these or add your own. So we can see that right here we're using percentages. I could change these, I think. I can add containers within that. So I could, within this column, I could add another column layout, like maybe we wanted columns within there for some reason. You've got some different options there. This is another example of where the stage is a little easier to work with. If I flip back,
handles, right?
Sorry?
You can also use the handles to change the column widths when you click on them?
Yes. Yeah, I think. I think you can drag. I don't know why it's not doing it here. But one other thing that I wanted to show. Oh, I think this will work. Let's see. Is on a page that's fairly complex like this one, you can also click into these and walk up and down these layers. So if I click, I'm on container 1. I don't know why that's not. There we go. And then I can keep going up the tree. So just another way, if you have a really complex page and you're not sure, like if you were, a bad developer and didn't rename all of these components that are the same, it could be confusing when they show up in the content tree. Yeah. All right, we've got about 5 minutes left. I'm going to stop sharing and we can do some Q&A. Oh, actually, I think we have more slides to go through. But we can do Q&A while we are doing that. So if you have any questions, go ahead and ask. We've got about 5 minutes left. So resources that we have available. So we have the Next Experience community. So there are a number of us that are subscribed to the Next Experience community. If you go to Product Hub's Products Now platform, Next Experience, it's somewhere, something like that. You can get to that community. If you ask a question, there's a lot of people subscribed to it. So that's the best place to get answers for UIB workspace related content. We have our COE that we have a link to in the chat. There is a UI Builder Fundamentals course, which has been updated for Utah. And then we've got a YouTube playlist that has all of our Academy sessions. So if you have more questions about guided tours and theming and other things that we released in Vancouver, we did a Next Experience UI and theming session last month. It will show you what is in Vancouver for those topics. What else do we have here? This is part of the Live on ServiceNow series. We've got, we've got a number of different academies in that series that we've got on the next slide. And you can register for all of them or some of them from the same page. Here are all of our platform academies. We've got the Platform Academy, which is where you'll find things like Process Automation Designer, Flow Designer, things like that. We've got Analytics, Mobile, you're watching Next Experience. And then our AI Academy is something that it's a little bit newer and exciting. So I'm sure that will be a pretty active academy over the next few months. And then conversational interfaces, so VA, chat, things like that. All right.
I think that's it.
That's it. Anybody want to ask a question in the next minute? Or 3 minutes, however long we have.
Thanks for handling the outro. Don't forget, everybody, our next session is going to be October 18th at 11 a.m. Eastern, like today. We also have the You and I Builder Live series if you're looking for a little bit more in-depth technical knowledge on UI Builder and workspaces. Our next session is going to be next Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern. If you have any questions, you need anything else, like Brad said, find us on the ServiceNow community. Thank you all very much.
Thanks, everybody.